Welcome to our revision 2018 paper. We're going to look at the compulsory question. Let's take note of the key areas of thought. So this question basically wants us to highlight the following: to discuss the types of competition that obtained in the industry in which smart attire operated, the types of competition, and also the competitive strategies that were deployed. So take note of these ones as I get to read through the text. So we're going to look at the types of competition and the competitive strategies deployed. All right, so question reads: Smart attire began in 1990. It was a small operation located in a highly populated but low middle-income African township known as Matero in Lusaka. It had little purchasing power to generate store traffic. It depended largely part on stocking merchandise from Limbanda Store, a well-known wholesale company that is based in Lusaka. Although Limbanda traded mainly goods around Lusaka, it was until 2010 that only the company sold quality men's shirts that it sourced from India, Middle East, and UK. Now, a sole trader of smart attire, steadfastly refused to compromise on quality and hence depended on Limbanda supplies of top brand in men's shirts. Since smart enterprises do not have high quality volume, Limbanda supplied merchandise to smart attire on credit determined by Limbanda, and further set a price which smart attire would sell the merchandise. In addition, so they set the price at which they could sell. So Limbanda would come into smart store, stock shelves in the name of saving smart attire labor costs. The situation choked smart attire, but Limbanda insisted that smart attire had a choice to go to a rural area where smart attire could be a wholesaler and sell itself. So this situation went as follows. The situation choked Nawa and prompted him to open a shop in Western Province region, considered to be rural and a poor out of the way. As a wholesaler, Limbanda was not particularly interested in saving the company, but to build its stores in such areas. So Nawa took this fledgling company public and used the capital to raise and build a distribution center to stock merchandise. The distribution center would save all stores within a 300-kilometer radius, with trucks leaving the distribution center daily to be stocked. Because the distribution center was serving a collection of stores and thus buying larger volumes, now found that he was able to cut on the wholesalers out of the equation and order directly from the manufacturer, saving costs generated by not having to pay profits to the wholesalers, where he passed on to the customers in the form of lower prices, which helped Smart Center Attire continue growing. This growth increased its purchasing power and thus the ability to demand for cheaper and discounts from the manufacturer. Today, Smart Attire has turned its buying process to an art form, since 25% of all the retail sales in Western Province are made of Smart Attire Enterprises store. The company has numerous bargaining power over its suppliers. Suppliers of international branded shirts are no longer in position to demand for high prices. Instead, Smart Attire is now important to its suppliers that is able to demand deep discounts from them. Moreover, Smart Attire Enterprises itself has become a brand that is more powerful than the manufacturers. People don't go to Smart Attire Enterprises to buy branded goods. They go to Smart Attire for low prices. This enabled Smart Attire Enterprises to bargain down the prices it pays, always passing the cost to the consumers in form of lower prices. Since 2012, Smart Attire Enterprises provided suppliers with real-time information on retailing in Zambia and the Western Province in particular. These allowed suppliers to optimize their own production processes, matching output to demands of smart attire enterprises in other stores in Zambia, and thus avoiding overproduction and the need to store inventory. This is according to South W Storage Management. So we're now being asked to analyze this question as follows. Discuss the types of competition obtained in the industry in which smart attire operated, and also the strategies that were deployed. So let's itemize some of the key types of competition. So as we look at these types of competition, we must in mind have the topic that this question is coming from, which is the 5 forces of Michael Porter. So the types of competition that are embedded in the 5 forces of Michael Porter are which ones?
Bargaining power of suppliers, then
Power of supply.
the okay, let me think. But there's also another bargaining power. I don't know if it's a bargaining power of buyers.
So it's bargaining power of the supplier, and also bargaining the buyer, then there's substitutes, and then potential of new entrants.
Okay. So we have competition coming from wholesalers, which is bargaining power of suppliers, competition coming from retailers, which is rivalry amongst existing competitors. There's also a threat of new entrants. Okay. All right. So let's now digest into those ones. So we are being asked to analyze what? The competition that is obtained in the industry in which smart attire operated, and the competitive strategies that were deployed. So here are the competitions. So there was a competition that came from where? So competition from wholesalers, so bargaining power of suppliers. So in the early stages, we are told that smart attires operations relied heavily on Imbanda store, a well-established wholesaler with a strong control over the market for its quality in men's shirts. So Limbanda had what? A monopoly on the key products that were imported from India, Middle East. So this allowed them to dictate the terms, okay, that they were able to give to smart attire, like pricing and credit conditions. So it's important to notice that this is part of the what? 5 forces. So this control that Limbanda exerted on a smart attire had the ability to compete effectively. So now, who was the owner of smart attire, was effectively constrained by the lack of bargaining power. So this forced him to accept the unfavorable terms. Okay. So the second one is what? Competition from the retailers, other retailers. So can somebody comment on that? Okay, so competition from other retailers. So Smart Attire was forced to face the competition that other local retailers had in a highly populated township in Matero, Lusaka, as we popularly obviously know. Are we together? So the bargaining power of suppliers, where we have already expanded to say It's a type of competition that was in the industry where Smart Attire was heavily dependent on Limbanda stock, so it had significant power, and Limbanda had controlled the supply of the quality shirts and also dictated the terms of pricing. Also, Limbanda had monopoly on the key merchandise, which was coming from India. The other one from the forces is the rivalry amongst existing competitors. So Smart Attire had faced competition from other retailers in material. These competitors targeted the same price of sensitive customers, so it made it essential for Smart Attire to differentiate themselves. How? Through their pricing and their quality. So this intense rivalry that existed is what drove Smart Attire to focus now on securing the quality products only, but also balancing the cost pressures that came, and this contributed into a highly competitive local market. The other source of competition, okay, a type of competition was a threat of new entry. So material market may have seen a threat of new retailers entering this market segment. So now this would have increased competition. The new entrants would have would have been attracted by the high population density, the demand for these affordable goods. So Smart Attire now expanded to rural areas here, particularly the Western province, because of the threat of new entrants, Lusaka being a target. So they decided to now diminish themselves to regions that was considered to be poor and less competitive. So this was in trying to look at the challenge of the threats of new entrants. Then the bargaining power. Okay. Are we together so far?
Yes, there's somebody, I think in the group was posted something like they're failing to join. It's requesting for an ID.
Okay.
Maybe you can assist with that.
Okay, let me share that. Okay. Any comment on threats to new entry? ID. Okay, so we're looking at the types of competition that existed. So we have looked at the competition from wholesalers, competition from other retailers, threats to new entrants, and the last two, which is bargaining power of buyers and threats of substitutes. So how do we actualize that? Bargaining power of buyers. So in terms of our case study here, you can have this to say. So the bargaining power of buyers here, we know that materials customers are highly elastic or price sensitive. So this gave them bargaining power over the retailers. So the bargaining power of buyers here comes in the sense that Smart Attire had to maintain competitive prices. They also had to maintain good product quality. This was to attract and retain customers. So as the company grew and gained more control over its supply, they had to reduce this buyer power by offering low prices so that they meet the demand more efficiently. Then the last one is threat of substitutes. So what were the substitutes that we're going to look at in this case? Substitute products could be cheaper, unbranded products and other low-cost alternatives. So these ones pose a threat to Smart Attire. So the customers could have opted for lower price alternatives. So especially that they didn't mind what brand they were wearing. So Smart they had to shift to affordable prices whilst maintaining the quality. So this will help them mitigate this threat of substitute. So the second part of the question was asking us to analyze the following. We're asked to now So discuss the types of competition. We talked about this is micro portals that were obtained in the industry in which Smart Attire operated and the competitive strategies that were deployed. So what are some of the competitive strategies that were deployed? What are some of the competitive strategies that were deployed? Those who really paid attention. So competitive strategies. Cost leadership. There was geographic expansion, vertical integration. Okay, these are the strategies that Smart Zambia looked at. So let's look at them in depth, the strategies that were deployed. So under cost leadership, Smart Attire adopted a cost leadership strategy where they eliminated the wholesalers like Limbanda. And also they eliminated other manufacturers' power that they had over them. So this significantly reduced their costs. So it allowed Smart Attire to offer lower prices to the customers. So this was a key advantage in that the price-sensitive market of material was able to afford the low-cost products. So by cutting out intermediaries, now the company saved on wholesaler margins. So they passed those savings to the customers now, making a strong low-cost competitive in the market. So the other aspect we will look at is vertical integration. So Smart Attire built its own distribution network. How? By opening stores, distribution outlets in Western Province. So they this move towards the vertical integration gave Smart Attire control over its inventory. So this vertical integration also allowed this company to streamline their operations and to reduce their costs and also ensure that there was consistent product availability in the stores. Geographic expansion. So we now opened their store in Western Province, Smart Attire expanded into the rural and saved markets. So this expansion basically allowed the company avoiding their intense competition that was there and unnecessary competition that was there in Lusaka, when they could still make profit margins in another geographic area. So this is one strategy that companies must also look at. When a place is too saturated, you need to look at different horizons where you can trade, whilst making the same or different margins of profits, but offering the same product. In the other strategies that we saw were supply chain efficiency. So Mr. Nawa made a decision to provide suppliers with real-time data on the retail trends. So this helped in improving the supply chain efficiency. So collaborating this with the suppliers, they had to adjust on production, just-in-time production. So this minimized overproduction or underproduction. So it reduced on warehousing costs. So this was very efficient and made Smart Attire had some kind of power. Then brand power over time, Smart Attire became its own brand. So customers were no longer visiting the store because of international brands, but because of the low prices. They were reliable also. So these are some of the strategies that are now put in place. So this is how you get your 40 marks. It was a handful. You could still as well add more points to analyze this question. So case studies really require quite a lot of analysis and focus. Okay, so we'll go to section B. Section B, some firms in Zambia practice social corporate responsibility. Like I said, this question appears in all the papers, whilst others do not. So we've looked at this question several times. Let's explain the significance of CSR to a firm strategy. Okay, what is the significance of CSR in a firm's? Anyone? Significance of CSR. What does social corporate responsibility do? 8 marks.
Maybe just to try Collins. When a company engages in corporate social responsibility, they market themselves indirectly. Like the way Trade Kings did market itself indirectly during the time of COVID by giving oxygens, and they also have at the mother's shelter, they have adopted the word, and they actually have painted and they give out stuff. So people in the mother's shelter always say, "Ugula bomu," because they have marketed themselves indirectly to those mothers there because of the help that they give to the word. I submit.
Wow, that's a very good and timely actualized response. Yeah, so they enhance the reputation they have, like has been put. So CSR will improve the public image, like she has said, to say, when you go to marketeers, they'll talk about buying boom. So this attracts more customers, new customers, and also not only customers, but investors. When they hear about Trade Kings, they look at a company that adheres to CSR. Okay, so that is one key point. So the other key points, like I have beamed there, is that CSR enhances customer loyalty and retention. So customers are increasingly very conscious of corporate ethics. So firms that will practice that can foster strong emotional connections with their customers. So this will lead to long-term loyalty. Also, long-term sustainability, CSR will focus on long-term goals. So these long-term goals like environmental sustainability, community development, these are not just for profit making, but they focus on the company's ability to be available to society during these changing climatic changes. So they have long-term sustainability because wherever they're operating, people want them to be there. Competitive advantage, CSR practices will help companies differentiate themselves from competitors. So by aligning businesses with those that do CSR, okay, so firms can attract socially conscious consumers to prioritize their interests also. So it gives competitive advantage. So between a local brand that does not do CSR and a foreign brand that does CSR, people will support a foreign brand, okay? Even if it's a local brand that is not doing what helps, so rather go to some firms that will do that. So it gives them what? Competitive advantage. Employee engagement. So CSR also enhances employee satisfaction and engagement by creating a sense of belonging and purpose beyond just profit. So employees will be more likely remain loyal and motivated to work for a company they believe in. Risk mitigation. CSR also helps companies to avoid what? Legal issues. Also environmental and social risks. So if you adhere to ethical standards, addressing community concerns, businesses will avoid negative press, lawsuits, and unnecessary things. Okay, so I was in a scenario where I witnessed an employee from a Somalian company. Here in Dollar, predominantly we have people who are investors, mainly from Somalia. So because they don't practice CSR, so when one had bashed a guy who was on a bike, the sentiments that came is, I don't know, a foreigner, and they don't even help us, you know? That kind of sentiment just gave in that aspect to say people will not what? Will not stand in for you. They will not vouch for you. They will have negative things around you. So CSR helps in maintaining that brand image. Businesses will avoid negative sentiments like that. Improved investor relations. So CSR also can attract investors interested in those that are interested in ethical and sustainable business models. So, for instance, ESG, environmental, social, and governance. So some investors are more likely to support such firms. Brand differentiation. So in a highly competitive sector, CSR will allow firms to stand out by showcasing their commitment to the environment, to the society. So differentiating them will help attract a certain niche of customers. Okay, I've seen companies that have thrived well, although not as a strategy, but companies that promote positive life or attitude towards sickle cell patients. Everyone will support such initiatives, autism and etc. as part of CSR. So it differentiates. They are going to get a certain niche. When it comes to life products, people have umoyo because they feel umoyo is more inclined to health-related products and also health living. I hope we are moving together.
Yes, we are.
Okay, so this is basically how it's only 8 marks, the significance that we have in what? Corporate social responsibility. In a treatise against the concept of social corporate responsibility, Adam Smith argued that it is not from the benevolence of the butcher, the brewer, or the baker that we expect our dinner, but from their regard for their own interests. Discuss. So this question has come in more than 5 papers. So how do we discuss this concept? So we had argued it, but I'll look at it from a different perspective. So Adam Smith's assertion in terms of CSR, we're going to look at the key points: profit motive, efficient market, and the invisible hand in the market. So we'll look at these ones in that way. So Adam Smith's statement on social corporate responsibility, profit motive. So Adam Smith's perspective here emphasizes the primary goal of the business is to maximize the profit, but firms are driven by the self-interest to deliver goods and services efficiently, from which they themselves benefit, from which also society will indirectly benefit. So that statement, if we're going to analyze it, we'll break it down in those segments that I've put there. So the perception or the perspective, Adam Smith wrote in his famous book, Wealth of Nations, he provides this foundational argument against the need for formalized social corporate responsibility. So Adam Smith has emphasized the importance of self-interest, the importance of market efficiency. These are key drivers of societal wealth and prosperity. So that statement is ambiguous, but you can recite it in your own way. So he argues and urges businesses that they should focus on profit maximization as their primary selfish responsibility. He says by pursuing this as their self-interest, firms should ensure that they produce goods and services that people actually want at the prices that people are willing to pay. So in view of this, companies must serve their best to society by being efficient, by being profitable, and not deviating resources towards social causes. So this is why the sentiment comes in to say a baker's goal is to bake and to sell loaves of bread as possible at a price that maximizes profit. So this is a focus that Adam Smith wants to bring in, to say the focus should lead to better bread at lower prices, which will benefit both the business and society. And the other aspect here that he underscores is that of efficient markets that foster social welfare. So Adam Smith believed that competition, free markets will naturally lead to the most efficient allocation of resources. So he believes that businesses, in pursuit of their own financial gain, should create value for society by providing the goods and services in a most efficient way possible. So in this sense, Adam Smith is basically saying that self-regulating nature of markets should eliminate the need for businesses to engage in separate social corporate responsibility initiatives. So for instance, a company that is competing in a free market should be forced to innovate and to produce lower prices to win customers. This will in turn benefit the customers and will also benefit the business in its overall sense without the need for doing a deliberate social corporate responsibility. Okay, so the other aspect that is being talked about is the invisible hand. So Adam Smith's infamous invisible hand theory here suggests that individual self-interest unintentionally benefits society. So businesses that will prioritize profit, businesses that prioritize profit will naturally contribute to societal growth by creating and stimulating innovation by providing goods and services at competitive prices. He also says CSR is a distraction to some extent. So it's a negative sentiment that needs to be properly analyzed. So Smith here argues that engaging in CSR initiatives can divert a company's resources to unintended purposes. A company's main goal is to do what? To maximize profit. So allocating funds to places that are unrelated to our core business will reduce our profitability. So he says this will hurt what? The business by reducing on the expansion prospects. So according to Smith, in that statement we read, businesses should only focus on what they do best. And this is making profits rather than toiling money in social responsibility issues that don't bring profit. So example, a company must spend money on environmental or social projects that a company must not spend money on environmental or social that do not directly contribute to profit. This will reduce a competitive edge. All right. So this is how you can analyze this question. Question number 2. Okay. Unless there are any additions, so we'll end on question number 3. Discuss the significance of organizational structure to a company strategy in light of the decision made by Concola Copper Mine to lay off workers because of low copper prices on the international market. And we discuss this in line with organizational structure. So this also comes often. How can we answer that? Okay, let's discuss the significance of organization structure of the company in a case where KCM decides to lay off workers due to declining copper prices. Anyone? Okay, I'm listening. Okay, so I could say the significance. Firstly, organizational structure plays an important role because it helps to shape a company's ability to implement and execute its strategy. So in the context of KCM, we want to look at how laying off workers due to declining copper prices implement affects strategy and the relationship that it has between organizational structure and strategy. So to start with, start with, we can say the following. Number one, it helps to facilitate strategic decision making. So laying off, though may sound negative, is in line with a company's ability to ensure that they are in line with their key aim of profit making. So organizational structure defines a hierarchy of decision making and authority within a company. So in the case of KCM, the decision to lay off workers may have been based on strategic priorities like cost control, survival, like I mentioned. So a well-defined structure will ensure that critical decisions are made in the best interest of the company. So in a centralized structure where top management would take the decision of laying off workers during such a predicament, it is in alignment with the objective of an organization to maximize on their profits. Okay. The second point that we could talk about is adapting to the changing external market. Adapting to the changing market. Okay, so the structure of a company can affect how quickly it adapts to changes in the external environment, like the fluctuation copper prices. So a flexible or decentralized structure will allow faster decision-making, adaptation to market shifts. This will enable KCM to adjust their operations or downsize when necessary. So here we're looking at the two types of structure. There's a centralized and decentralized structure. So when you're dealing with a structure that is flexible, decentralized, it will allow quick decision-making in the light of predicament like low copper prices. So KCM has a more decentralized structure where managers in various departments and regions would have the autonomy to take swift actions like adjusting production levels in response to the volatility of the copper prices. Okay, so going back to our question again, our question is asking us to align these two. The organizational structure, how it's significant to a company strategy in light of the decision that KCM may make to lay off workers because of the low copper prices. Are we together? Okay, so we'll talk about number one, facilitation of decision making. So organizational structure will help strategic decisions in alignment with organizational goals. Secondly, organizational structure to company strategy, we're talking about adaptability. This will help in what? Allowing for quick decisions that can be made to external changes like fluctuating copper prices. So other factors that we look at are efficiency, alignment with strategy, communication and coordination, scaling, production. Okay. So this is looking at cost efficiency or adaptability I've already mentioned. Say in terms of adaptability, so a flexible structure will allow for quick adjustments to the external market changes. So the fluctuating copper prices here. Then cost efficiency, we're looking at a lean structure. We help KCM to reduce costs through tough time by streamlining the productions and also cutting unnecessary expenditure. Okay. Any additions at this point? We can add more on the points that we can look at quickly. Refer to the pamphlet, or this is already in the pamphlet. So communication, if we have a clear structure, it will help for efficient communication and it will help different departments at KCM to coordinate with cost-effective measures effectively. So KCM structure also will allow the company to scale operations up or down based on the conditions like reduction of production or increasing of production. The other point is that of employee morale. So proper management of layoff through clear structure will minimize negative impact that may exist on employee morale. So this will ensure the remaining workforce stays productive. Okay, so this is how we could answer this question. So this is one of the most topic with scattered points. Okay, so we'll continue later on. 14, 13. I have another class in investment. So we'll look at the remaining two questions later on. We'll end here.